Yo, what's going on, guys? This is Jae Grind. Welcome to the Jae Grind podcast. So this is actually one of the dopest, podcasts that's going to be on from the BX, as you already heard. So for not, any further ado, we have a special guest, classy, suave, smooth at all times, loves the Lord, Christian based man, Mr. Hakim Telleifarro. What's going on, man?
What's up, my man? I'm so happy to be here, man. Thank you for having me, brother. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Loving it.
It's a pleasure to have you in here. And actually, I'm gonna shout everybody out. This man, was the reason why I actually decided to start my podcast. First of all, I never had any idea, wanting to do that. Actually, guys, we're gonna dive into more later in the deep conversations. He does have his own podcast called The Alpha Talk. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying? Get stay in tune for that. So but we're not gonna hold on to that. So, Mr. Hakeem Telleifarro, can you tell the fans and the people what a little bit about yourself?
Oh man, where do I start? So, first off, I just want to give a shout out right back to my boy Joel, man. Awesome man, just a phenomenal guy, a man who lives by his word and by the word. So I really, I have a lot of honor and respect for you as well, brother. So, just much kudos to what you're doing out here in the community, in the rap industry, in the entertainment industry with your acting and all that good stuff. So I have a lot of respect for you, brother. Keep up the good work.
Oh,
So
thank you.
a little bit about me. Uh, Man, I'm just about my father's business. I had to keep it simple, and what I mean by that is there was once upon a time where I was a man who considered myself a pretty ambitious person. I would just have ideas and I would get inspired and I would just move, I would just act, right? I would just act on that inspiration, that motivation. So, for example, I had a conversation with someone, I feel inspired, I go take action. But that ambition, that drive and motivation only took me so far because I had to figure out, even though I was inspired and motivated, I had to figure out who am I as a man, right? So, fast forward, I end up, trying to give like a succinct version, right? Fast forward, I meet my wife, and I feel like a lot of things started to come together once I met my wife as far as my true purpose and calling as a man. And then fast forward some more, I ended up really, having my family. So here you have this ambitious entrepreneur meeting his wife, then having a family. I have two young men. One is a baby, the other one's like 2 years old. So, when you ask who I am, it's all of that and then some. It's a father, it's a husband, it's an entrepreneur, and all in all, I'm just really about my father's business. And what I mean by that is, as Joel mentioned, I am a man who loves the Lord, and I no longer move just with by myself anymore. There was upon a time where I did feel like I was by myself, like I was alone, and that I didn't have help or protection. So I had to learn through a process that I am protected and that I don't have to move by myself and I'm never alone. So, to kind of give you guys a succinct version, like honestly, I'm just a man about family. I'm about my friends, my brother right here. Like I'm just really about connecting with the people that I love. That's it.
That's good. That's good. So, he's a family man. First of all, he's doing the Lord's work, which is really and is really commendable. Why? Because that gives you a purpose, and realizing that it's not just about you anymore and that you met your amazing wife that definitely shaped you to be the man that you are today, which is a blessing. Shout out to, Ashley, for that. Got through her. And I wanna I wanna dive into there was some things that I actually wanted to ask you when you said about action, ambition. What do you say to young entrepreneurs who actually want to start a business, who want to, you know, hey, how do I get this drive? How do I start something? Like, where do I start? Like, where do I look? You know what I'm saying? You've been in the game for a very long time. So I wanted to ask you that and, tell others.
Absolutely. So there's a acronym I go by. It's called ICE: Inspire, Connect, Empower. So if you want to be a person who really makes change and really makes an impact in the world, you want to be a person who inspires people to be their best selves. You want to be a person who connects with the right people, and you always want to be in a position where you're empowering others to also move in what God called them to move in. So, as an entrepreneur trying to figure out what you want to do, what you enjoy doing, I say sometimes you just have to try different things out. You're going to go through a process of figuring out what you like, what flows naturally to you. Sometimes we can do things because our parents told us to do it, or because people say, "Oh, you know what? I think you should do this." But I always encourage people to figure out what feels natural and free to them. So, me, for example, right? I have a perfume company. And what feels natural and free to me is hosting people, right? I like to make people feel good. I like to encourage people. So even though I make fragrances, there's a business side where I have to do the marketing, the operations, the budgeting, all that other stuff. I still focus on my real strength. And well, I'm not saying my strength, I have many, in whatever, but my real joy is making people feel good. So that's the part that I focus on through the fragrances. And I take that making people feel good into different avenues. Like you mentioned, the Alpha Talk podcast. That's a podcast that connects, empowers, and inspires. So it's always the same thing. It's always those three things that I'm doing: inspiring, connecting, and empowering. So I just always think, I just encourage people to kind of have like a foundation for everything that you do. So for example, like for me, it's, making people feel good. So I say whatever you can do that helps you to feel fulfillment and to help others feel good, and what flows freely to you, I say, as an entrepreneur, try it out. Just go through a process. Like you may try something out, you may not like it, it may not be easy for you. It's okay, because some things you can create and get a team behind you. So you may create a business and you may not enjoy it, but it may be a good business. So you need to have the right, that kind of goes to the connecting part, where you need to connect with people who can help you to see what you have and what to do with what you have. Because
Mm,
even though you may not enjoy it, it could be something that could be profitable for you and could be good for your legacy.
wow, love that. Guys, check it out. Actually, I bought myself a lot of cologne from Mr. Hakim Telleifarro. It's beautiful. It smells good. I use it I got the pens, I got the colognes, the bottles. It's classy. It's nice, guys. Really check it out. Really support this black man's business. Actually, speaking of your business, because I could
Hmm.
definitely shout it out. Tell us a little bit about. Obviously, you briefly told us about your business. Tell us how long you've been doing it. Tell us just
Hmm.
more of your backstory and where it came to be and how.
Yeah. So the company started back in 2010. Honestly, I was just trying to make a plug-in, and I was trying to actually stop spending so much on plugins and candles and stuff. And I'm like, hold up, man. Like, I'm spending a lot inside of Walgreens and CVS, like 50, $60 on spray cans and candles and all that stuff. I was like, yo, what if I just try to make this stuff myself? So it started from there. So I bought some of the individual products and I played around, and I didn't really succeed completely in that area because there was some things I didn't know and I didn't understand. But I ended up finding a mentor who was such a huge blessing to me. And my mentor actually created projects and worked with clients like Ralph Lauren, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, and so forth. Really well-known brands that have some prestige and stain in the fragrance world. So honestly, it was really just having good mentors that helped me to find my own voice and place in fragrance. So started in 2010, and we had a totally different name, which goes back to what I was talking about as far as being an entrepreneur. You evolve, right? So you evolve. Don't think that where you started is exactly where you'll finish. So, like I said, when I first started the company, I was just trying to make a plug-in. But now today we focus more so on perfumes and everything, even though we still have some home products we're working on and stuff. or our main thing is making people feel good through fragrance in many different ways. So our company name starting out was Luxurious Life Sense. And it's funny because it was my mindset at the time was very materialistic, very like, oh, you got to have the Ferrari, you got to have, and my mindset at that time, multiple women, you have to have the nice clothes and be about a private jet and have the mansion. That was my mindset of what luxury was. But it was a transforming, uh, almost like a meditation session that I had, and I believe in 2014 to 2015, where this gentleman took me through a session. And in that session, I was able to really dive deeper into what I saw luxury was. I'm sorry, luxury is, and what luxury was to me. And when we really broke luxury down to a fine powder, to me, it really just was laying at the beach unbothered. So you can imagine in that session, my perception and perspective of what luxury is totally changed to where I saw it as more subjective. It's not just material. It's subjective to each person, basically meaning every person sees luxury differently. Some people may have kids and being able to have time with their kids without having to do work is luxury to them. So luxury is different to each person. So fast forward, because I had that revelation and had that session, I ended up changing the whole company name to the Telleifarro. And that is my last name. Basically, our company name is like the product is exactly what it says. It's an extension of us. Every product is made based off of a story, some type of experience, a celebration, and so forth. So all of the products are made from the heart, and it's all about authenticity. So, for example, we have a product called Room 129, which is one of our best sellers. This product was inspired by a dream. And I'll tell you guys more about that at another time. But even a story with that, whenever I share that, people are wowed and they want to experience the product. So that's another thing I will tell you guys too. As entrepreneurs, you want to be a great storyteller. You want to be a person who can craft stories, who can improve in communication continually, just always finding ways to share stories because people like stories. People love stories. So that's my spill. We've been able to do some cool things and have some really cool things in the works with Telefaro.
That's great. That's great. So, you're a family man, you're a businessman, and now you've changed the name to Luxury Lifestyle to the Telefaro, and I
Yes,
and I
sir.
w- and I never witnessed the transition, but I witnessed the Telefaro brand. And you said something about legacy.
Yes,
What
sir.
is what does legacy mean to you?
So legacy, what it means to me is what is remembered about you after you're gone.
Mm.
What is remembered about you? And there's a person, I believe it, Maya Angelou, she said, people will forget what you said, what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So I believe that legacy is two parts. One, it's part of what you do to how you make people feel, the people that you leave behind. Okay, I'll just let him say hi since he's here. All right, you can say hi, but you can't stay for too long. Say hi.
Hey,
This is part of my legacy. So since we talking about legacy, he is a part of my legacy. So children can be a part of your legacy. Your business and all these things can be part of legacy. So ultimately, legacy is what you leave behind, and the values that you instill, your character that is implanted into others. Because ultimately, we want to be people who I say. There's a quote that I have with the Telefaro. I say, "How you treat people leaves behind an aroma." I say it again. How you treat people leaves behind an aroma, and you always want to be a person who leaves a pleasant aroma behind.
I love that. I love that. And speaking of cheating people, you did say you have a big faith in God and you're a Christian man. So tell us about your journey, you know, transitioning into becoming Christian and being who you are today. Give us a little bit about that. I think, the people want to know a lot about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm happy you asked that question, man. It's so much I could say. One thing I will say first is, um, I really love the Lord, and I love Him not because of what I read in a book, what someone else told me. I love Him because I actually have a relationship with Him, and it's something that has transformed me from a person who used to want to die every day for years, attempting to take my life. I attempted suicide at least 5 times.
Wow.
I stand here as a man who once, like I said, attempted to take my life. I had guns, basically, they weren't pointing at me, but they were outside, and I missed it. I got stabbed and I made it out of that. Then, I lost my mom at the age of 8, lost my father at the age of 20, 21, and had little to no relationship with the man who was supposed to be my provider and protector. God bless his soul. But, he was the man that was supposed to be there to provide and protect and show me how to be a man of upstanding character, how to raise a family, how to lead a family, and so forth. And I stand here as a man who even went through some experience where there was some abuse with, parenting. Me being a young man and experiencing certain things like being tied to a tree in the woods and spanked,
Oh
with the
my
wooden
gosh.
paddle.
Wow.
So I mean, I can go on and on about some of the things that, like, it would blow your mind. Like, I can remember there was a cereal box, and it was like a collector's item, because back then the Wheaties cereal, I haven't seen Wheaties in a while, by the
Yeah,
way.
no.
Have you seen Wheaties? Oh no. But anyway,
Nah.
so Wheaties, they used to have these collector's edition boxes where it was like certain Super Bowl players and I guess it was always football. I don't know if it was other sports, but I know it was a football player that was on this particular one. And somehow, some way, that cereal box was not supposed to be touched, but somehow it got touched and opened. Someone actually opened it up, and it was cereal cereal missing out of it, and it was supposed to be a collector's item, so that if you open it, it kind of like degrades the value.
Yeah.
So I don't know, however that thing got open, I don't know, but I ended up taking the blame for it, and I just say it this way, that night did not go well for me. That night did
Wow.
not go well for me as a young man, 10, 11 years old. That was a very crazy night. But, God was still there to protect me. But, like, I'm sharing all of this just to let you see, like, you don't know everything that I've been through, but you won't know it unless I tell you, because the way that I am and the love that I have for people, you will never experience what I had to experience, because my goal has always been to allow the Lord to make me into a person that always gives love, even when it hurts. And, like, for me, like I said, I really love the Lord, and I always want to be a person who helps to bring healing to people and not hurt. And that's what I do through fragrances. It's what I do through my family, my marriage. I'm always looking to restore. So when I say I love the Lord, my journey started out as, as far as with the Lord, like, like most people say, like, they had to go through a season of being broken down and figuring out, like, yo, like, there has to be more for me. And I personally had an encounter where I can remember it was a time where I was real broken down. I was discouraged. I kept having suicidal thoughts. I'm like, why am I here? Like, why does this stuff keep repeating? And I'm literally sitting on the floor. And what I used to do at that period of time before I really had my relationship with the Lord was, whenever I was feeling down and I didn't know what to do, I would type in, it was a website I would go to called BibleDice.com. And if I was feeling bad, I would just go to that website, randomly, and see what scripture would pop up. So that particular day where I was laying on the ground, just despondent and discouraged, a verse popped up, and it was basically the story of the parable of the sower. And in that story, Jesus is basically talking about the four types of people that you have when you're sharing the word of God. You have four different types of listeners, and I was one of the listeners that he described as the one um, who had soil, but it was rock. It was mostly rock, so that the soil couldn't actually, it couldn't actually, no fruit could really come forth because the roots wouldn't go deep enough, right? So, and I, you guys can look it up. It's the parable of the sower. Look it up in your own time. But when I saw that, I read that, something clicked in my spirit, like something like really hit me really hard, and I was like, I had an aha moment. It's almost like a light bulb or something went off, and then lo and behold, out of nowhere, the door just opens. The
Mm,
door just randomly opens, and it was like I felt like that was like the Lord basically saying, "I'm here," like almost like walking in, because it was like at that moment I could remember. I felt like Jesus is like, "I'm here. This is what I was trying to tell you all along." And I believe from that day forth, and I don't. I think my life was totally different. I don't remember everything specifically, but I just remember that significant moment where I was like, okay, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Because at that time I was experimenting with a whole bunch of different belief systems. I even went into a Scientology center. I even went to some Taoism, Confucianism, whatever it was out in New York
mm,
City. And they called it, I'm not going to say what they called it, but, I went there and I went downstairs in this place. Like I'm saying, like I went through a whole bunch of things trying to figure out the truth because I was really in search of him. I didn't know it. I was in search of truth, but I didn't know that the truth is a person. It's not a concept. So anyway, I went to this place and I went downstairs. Mind you, I'm trying to find the truth. And I go down there. They're like, yeah, go down there, go have a good time, just meditate or whatever. And I see all these golden statues all over the place. And in my spirit, I was just like, nah, nah. Like it was almost like I just knew right away that that wasn't for me. And I just walked out. I was like, this isn't right. And this is before I even had a relationship with God, a relationship with the Holy Spirit. I just knew that that wasn't the way. And I left out of there, and I still had a little journey, still trying to figure out. But long story short, that when I met my wife and her family, they kind of helped me to see a side of the Lord that I wasn't really familiar with, was that relational aspect. Because prior to that, I just thought of Jesus as being more like just like a religion. And I didn't see it as anything personal. I didn't see it as like, oh, God actually wants to walk with me. I just saw it as I'm just praying to God because I want to live a good life, or I need stuff. It was never about actually having his heart and wanting to show his heart. It was always just about me. So
mm.
it's definitely been a journey. And has everything been like ice cream and butter cookies? Nope. But at the same time, there's a level of power and trust that I have now that I just know I didn't have that 10 to 15 years ago. I have many testimonies to share, but I don't want to give y'all too much right now.
Yo, this is great. Just to hear Mr. Telleifarro's backstory of what he's been through briefly, and just giving the knowledge and understanding of his, not just his, but being a Christian and transforming and understanding that where he is now is a journey. Sometimes a lot of people will look at you and say, wow, you're so established, so accomplished, not knowing that it took those trials and tribulations, nearly death experiences that a lot of people won't haven't experienced, or if they have, they will understand. And it takes Christ, it takes God to be loving and kind regardless, and to even share the knowledge that you have. You could have kept it to yourself, which is amazing. So I want to ask you, because you're on a Jae Grind podcast, have you ever heard of my music?
Yes,
Have
sir, absolutely. I heard your music and I liked your flow. I think you have something great. One of the songs you had was the World Ain't Nice. That was the one I was more familiar with because I saw the video for that one. And I was like, you know what, this guy really has a message. And I can even see how, like, even from me seeing that video to now, I can even see a transition in you where it's almost like you are overcoming even thinking that you have to bend to the world not being nice. Like it's almost like I see you growing that courage. Like even though it's this way, I'm not going to allow it to mold me to be just like it.
Hmm.
You get what I'm saying? Because sometimes, like you said, we can just allow what the world is telling on how people are to affect who we are. So like I feel like you have something great with your music. I think that like the Lord is going to continue to use even that as an avenue to reach people who feel like they have no voice. They don't know why they're here. Because a lot of us are in pain. A lot of people are in pain and just not talking about it. So I respect that you're at least sharing your story and using your music as a tool to share what's in your heart as a way of to even vent and help others to find their voice. Ultimately it's about helping others to find their voice because nobody's just making music without purpose. And if you are, then you should, I encourage a person, people to have a purpose for their music.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I like what you were saying about this world day nice. So when you saw the video, I want you to get more in depth of the video and how it related to you and what message you got from it. Even though you briefly talked about it, I just want to like, know a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So like even in the video, it's like I saw you like dealing with different scenarios where you were being talked to a certain type of way. You was dealing with this scenario, and it was like a lot of conflict where it was almost like I think it was you were the guy that was being attacked and from many different people, just coming at you,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, it was like people were coming at you, and it's just like I was seeing how I can even relate to that. Like you're dealing with this person, you're just trying to get through the day, you're trying to handle this, and this person's coming at you crazy, going crazy, and you're trying to be calm and respectful, like, and not say
Hmm.
anything. And it's hard because you feel like just grabbing their neck, hugging their neck, right? Quite quiet. No, I'm kidding. No, but like, like just dealing with just crazy situations and even having obligations, and this person's acting this way, and it's just a lot of reasons for us just to kind of like cave in. And what I was getting from it is like the more like all of that stuff happens because you have the power to get through it. And eventually it comes a point in time where like no matter how crazy people talk to you, however they are, you start to realize that has nothing to do with me. That's something to do with them.
Right, right, right. That's great. That's great. I'm glad, my music has a message and it can resonate with you and so many other people in this world that's going through something, and that means a lot to me. I'm not gonna be talking about me on my podcast, but it was
You
just
gotta
more.
tell people something, man.
Well, I mean, you guys already know this world ain't nice, and and just to continue to just move forward and know your worth and know your value, and also being Christian Judaic based, trusting in God to get you through those things and not to change you because you can turn cold and numb, and you could be
Hmm.
missing. It's not missing opportunity, but you could be missing the people that are important, that mean to you in your life, that God wants to place in your life. So I know why I made that song because of what I was dealing with and what I was going through, and it was just so much going on. So I mean, you guys can check out the video. It's on YouTube, it's on all platforms, so you already know where it's at. So back to Mr. Telleifarro. Before we end this, right, we spoke about enduring, having a transition, being an entrepreneur, knowing to have a team. Why is it important to have two things I want to bring up to you? Family and team. Why?
Family and team, why are they important, you saying?
Yeah.
So, um, man, family is very important. So let's just say, like before a person gets married, you don't have wife, kids, or if you're a woman, you don't have husband, kids, anything yet. Let's just
Hmm.
focus on just your immediate family, like mom, dad, or whoever takes care of you.
Yeah.
They are part of your identity, right? So there are times where we may do things and we don't even know why we're doing it. So I always challenge people to kind of look at the battles that they have. Like, for example, just to show you what I'm talking about. Let's say, for example, you realize that mom always cursed a lot, and mom always left the house, and mom didn't like having, mom didn't like going to church. And now here you go, you realize, like, yo, you know what? Now I'm over here cursing. I'm over here, doing whatever, and I don't like going to church. And when you start to like kind of like look at the environment that kind of shaped you, you start to see kind of like where your path could be and where you can take it. So, like, identity is everything, like, this is the reason why it's very important for a man to be in a household. Fathers, if you're a son, your father. If you're a father, to your sons and your daughters as well. Identity is so important. It's so important. So I always encourage people to kind of like learn more about your parents, like ask them more questions. Like, yo, you know what? Like, a lot of times we just think that they are who they are because of just, they, like, that's just how they are, but they became that way. They had it, either they adapted or they just kind of, they just adapt. They just kind of like flow with the society, right? They just repeated the pattern. So I always encourage people. Family is so important. You want to know more about your family. Ask questions, discover, because there may be things that you can kind of avoid by knowing more about their story, and it could be things that you can grow from and learn from. So that's just if you don't have a family, kids, anything yet. Now, let's say you do have a family, you have kids and stuff like that. You want to be very intentional about the identity, the story that you even create in your own family, because your kids learn more from what you are than what you say. You can say and teach a lot of things with your mouth, but what your kids are really going to take from you is what you live. They're going to take from your actions, your habits, the things that you say, the things you don't say. They're going to mimic and take on these things. So you have the capacity as a parent to kind of shape and mold their minds and help shape their identity in a positive way. So like identity is so important. I keep saying it, like, identity is so important. The reason why it's so important to me personally is because, like I said, I lost my mom at a young age, and my father, I didn't have a relationship. So for me, I had to go through a process of kind of figuring out who I was as a man and what story I wanted to tell. So I had to pull from a whole bunch of different men, like for certain leaders, people who are well known, some not well known. So I took pieces from each and every person to kind of become the man that I am today. But then, eventually I just realized that the only person I really want to be like is Jesus. So I stopped looking at all these other individual men and started looking at Jesus. I need to pull from one person. Who do I want to be like? Christ. That's my
Mm.
role model now, right? Of course, other people have information, knowledge, and everything, but I wanted to be more like him. So that's where my identity is rooted in. My identity is safe in him. So, like, when I talk about identity, it had to go from a process of learning about mom, learning about dad, and you know, uncles, aunts, whatever. But then putting all that aside to say, you know what, I want to be like Christ though. And as a parent, as a family, or whatever, I encourage you guys to always just be conscious of the identity that you are helping your kids and even yourself to form, because you are going to replicate. And the question is, what do you want to replicate? And now to move over to team, I'm gonna keep it real short and sweet because I see family and team as being almost like interconnected, because your family can be a team. Ultimately, it's one goal. You have one vision, and it's the same thing. If you have a team for your business, for your job, whatever it is, I always encourage people, learn about who's part of your team. Like, everybody is not supposed to be like you. you know, everybody doesn't need to be an eye. In the Bible it talks about, like, if the whole body is an eye, then how would you hear? And if the
Right.
whole,
Hmm.
so like when you have a team, you have to acknowledge the strengths that others have and say, like, yo, like, you need them. So you can't think that you don't need a person because they're not like you. Sometimes you have to embrace differences. So when you're building a team and you're creating, even with the family, you have to look at what do you have, and what do they have, and then how can you guys work together? What do you guys, yeah, how can you guys work together? Just embrace the differences. And I always encourage people to read books. There's a book called Discover Your God-Given Gifts. And I encourage everyone, whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, I encourage you to read the book, because it actually gives you insight on spiritual gifts. And what I mean by spiritual gifts, it gives you insight on some things that you may do without even knowing about it. Like, for example, if you're a person who's always encouraging people, it may be because you're an exhorter. If you don't know what an exhorter is, just look it up in the book. So when you understand how you're naturally wired, and you start to understand how others are naturally wired, you respect their gift and they're able to receive you, because now you start to understand where they're coming from and how they're wired. So, education for family and for teams is recommended. I don't care how dope you think you are, you need education. Education is good. Get around some smart people, some people who are constantly improving themselves, constantly striving to raise the bar. You want to keep yourself around people who challenge you and hold you accountable. That's my spill.
Wow, wow. I love it. I love it. So before we go, please, um, tell everybody where they can find you, tell everybody where they can buy your colognes, and let them know one last message.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks again for having me, guys. You can find me at www.thetelefarro.com, which is the perfume website. That is more of like that's the fragrance website. The Telleifarro, that's spelled Thetaliaf, as in Frank, ERRO.com, thetelefarro.com. Or you can find me at the Alpha Talk on Instagram at the Alpha Talk, just how it sounds, TheAlphaTalk, the Alpha Talk. So, guys, you can find me there. And my last word of encouragement is be yourself. Be yourself and learn more about your natural patterns so that you can grow stronger and also improve. Never see yourself as a finished product. Nobody is a finished product. If you feel like you are a finished product, then you need to humble yourself.
I love it. I love it. All right,
Yes, sir.
guys. All right, guys. You already know this is the Jae Grind podcast, where y'all can find me on all platforms. Y'all can find me on
Mm.
Instagram, BXJ Grind, BX. We in here. Salute.
Salute.